Hello everyone, this is Ryan, and in this lesson I'll be teaching you how to add CSS into your document. CSS is short for cascading style sheets, and it is basically your presentation layer of your document. So I have a live preview open, and you can see it doesn't look very nice. It's got a heading and I've got 5 paragraphs here. I'm using lorem ipsum text. If you're not sure what lorem ipsum text is text that is used as placeholder text on the document. You can grab some lorem ipsum text by going to lipsum.com, and this allows you to generate this text. So for example, you could say give me 5 paragraphs and click generate lorem ipsum, and then you can just copy and paste this text from here. So that's what lorem ipsum text is. It simulates actual words in sentences. I think it is actually Latin text. So instead of coming up with fake text, lorem ipsum text is normally used to represent placeholder text on a document. But you'll agree it doesn't look particularly interesting. It's Times New Roman heading, Times New Roman paragraphs. So how do we make this look a little bit better? So we just add in some CSS. There's at least 3 different ways of adding CSS into your document. So we'll go through each of the different methods. So to begin, the first method is by using the style tag. Now, in older versions of HTML, we used to have to put in a type attribute and set that to text/CSS. And then in between the style tags, we would then simply add in our rules for our style sheet. However, in HTML version 5, the type attribute is no longer required. So I'm just going to leave that out. Then inside our style tags, we need to define the rules for our style sheets. So we start by providing a selector and then curly brackets. So curly brackets are where we're going to define the actual rules. The selector is selecting a tag in the document. So by saying H1 in the style sheet, it's looking for all H1 tags in the body section of the document. Now we're going to say, well, once you found the H1 tag, what must you do with it? Well, we can set the color to red, for example, and save that out. Now if I go to the live preview, you'll notice that it has changed the heading to red. Now, while I'm busy with this, I'm going to also define another selector called P for paragraph, and I'm going to define a color of green. And you'll notice that as I did that, the live preview updated. What else can I do? Well, I could change the font family, maybe to Verdana. Okay, and sometimes with the live preview, you may have to just refresh. You have to save brackets and then refresh before it updates. It could be that I just don't have the Verdana font on my machine. So let me try another one. Arial. Okay, that definitely changed. Then another thing you could do is maybe underline the text. So I'll use text decoration, underline, and it's underlined. So as we go through the course, I will introduce you to different properties and show you how they work. Don't worry too much for now what those properties are and what their values are. Just understand that they are changing the look and feel of the document. Another way in which you can add CSS into a document is to move the CSS into an external file. So let's cut that out of the document and then create a new file and paste that into the new file. I'm just going to outdent this quickly and then save the file with a .css file extension. I'm just going to call it style.css, and as I save it, I get the color coding. Notice that at the moment the document doesn't have any CSS. I need to go back to the HTML document, remove the style tags from the document, because these style tags are only used for inline style sheets. Instead of the inline style sheet, I'm going to add a link tag. So the link tag allows us to link to an external file. So we say link, and we give it an attribute of rel. Rel is short for relationship, and the relationship that we're going to use is a style sheet. Because there are different relationships that we can apply to a link tag, and a link tag is not only used for embedding an external CSS file. Then we need to supply an href attribute. Href is short for hyperlink reference and allows us to link to an external file. Brackets is already picking up all the different files in my project, so I can just simply select the style.css file from there. Don't forget to then close your greater than sign. Now, did you notice that the entire site updated again with the presentation rules? And it's putting them in from that external file. If I misspell this, you'll see it breaks it. So it needs to be the same file name as your external CSS file. Okay, then in previous versions of HTML, we had to put in the type property and set that to text/CSS. In HTML version 5, the type property is no longer required. So I'll just take that out for now. Another optional property you could add to your link tag is the media property. And the media property can be set to various different things. Usually we would use screen, which is the default. That means that the rules in that style sheet will be applied to the screen. And another common one that we use is print. Print would be to provide a separate set of rules when you want to print out the website to a printer. For now, we're just going to leave that out because it's going to default to media being screen. And so that is probably the way I would recommend adding CSS to your document. If you had an additional style sheet that you wish to add, you could also do that with another link tag. So you could just change this to the second file that you want to embed into the document. You can have as many link tags as you wish, all linking to different CSS files. Just remember though that the order of these link tags will be important, because the first one you specify in the document will have the least priority. The one that you specify last will have higher priority. And then lastly, another way that you can add CSS to a document is you can do it using a HTML attribute. So for example, within the second paragraph, I'm going to add a style attribute. And the style attribute then allows you to specify any CSS property. For example, color, and I can specify that as blue. Notice then how it changed the second paragraph to have a color of blue. So although you can add your CSS using an inline style like this, it's not really recommended, because it means that if you need to reuse this elsewhere, you're going to have to land up copying and pasting the same code. Where this is good to use is if you're doing an HTML mailer. That is, that you're using HTML in an email and sending that email out to different customers. When you're using HTML in an email, you have to use older HTML. So it doesn't, most mailing programs don't support the newer versions of HTML. So if you're doing a mailer, don't add your CSS using link tags, but rather embed the CSS directly into each individual element that you want to provide rules to. So if we wanted to provide a rule to this heading, we would just change the color, for example, to red, and it would be done. And if you wanted to supply an additional property, you just put a semicolon and you add, let's say, the font size, and we'll make that, say, 50 pixels. You just add as many properties as you want with a semicolon in between each property. Okay, so I don't particularly like the style property, so I would not advise you using it unless you are doing an HTML mailer. So I'm going to remove that for now from my document. And that brings us to the end of adding CSS into our document.